he was texting people saying they are going to kill me.
Charlie Kirk's leaked text confirms he was livid about bullying Jewish donors. I'm leaving the pro-Israel cause. I'm not going to name names, but I was told by someone close to Charlie Kirk that Charlie thinks Israel will kill him if he turns against them. The truth does not fear investigation. Think about that quote for a second. Let it hit, let it simmer. Think about what that means and how much noise can be quieted from all the discourse about pick a topic. When you just remember, like, actually, when it comes to the truth, for which there always is an objective truth about a situation, truth is not subjective. There's a lot of fear and anger, and we fight wars sometimes over like obscuring the truth, fighting for the truth, not wanting the truth to be talked about. You know, you get your pages taken down, you get censored. In some countries, you can have the cops knock on your door over a tweet. Britain, I'm looking at you, get it together, sis. And so, you know, in order to get to the truth, you often have to completely disregard people acting like that's crazy or acting like that is immoral or bad. And so when it comes to something like the Charlie Kirk assassination, which is obviously a sensitive topic, and hello, I was literally in tears over it in a video, so I get that, right? You can never put me on a list of people who are insensitive about this. There are a lot of takes, obviously. And there's a lot of people who are saying that Israel is potentially behind or involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination. And then there are people who are like, I don't think Israel did it, but I do think that his death has been politicized by Israel's government, Netanyahu, and there are lies coming from like the Zionist crowd about Charlie Kirk. And so there's a war on that front being fought. And, you know, I'm definitely open to them not having the correct guy in custody, Tyler Robinson, who they say did it, because it'd be kind of dumb if I did just assume that was the right person, considering they did arrest multiple people before him falsely. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'd have more faith that they got the right guy this time if they hadn't arrested multiple people before him wrongly. So to pretend as if it's just so crazy, you know, I mean, I think it's a bit crazier to just have faith that like, oh no, the fourth time they got the right guy. Apparently he has not actually admitted to doing it. You have the patsy, who was the person they arrested first, who allegedly claimed that he was paid to say that he did it. And then you have Charlie Kirk's friends actually coming out and saying a whole lot of stuff about how in fear Charlie was about Israel killing him. And then you have a lot of people that are very angry that that is coming up. A lot of people who are very upset because any criticism of Israel is equal to condemnable, you know, anti-Semitism, blood libel, etc. And I'm just not really with that. Like, you can't shut me up about anything with an ism behind it, or a racism, a sexism, an anti-Semitism. It doesn't really work. Like, at all. Today's podcast is sponsored by Hypnosio. It's a self-hypnotherapy app that is genuinely not like anything else in the weight loss space. And I know everyone always says, this is different, this is different. This one genuinely is. Hypnosio doesn't just throw another diet at you or shame you into working out, because that never works. It goes deep and works with your literal subconscious to achieve the goals that you want. It helps you rewire the emotional patterns that lead to stress eating, binge eating, overeating, and just overall self-sabotaging your goals. It uses guided hypnotherapy sessions available on any device or through their app. It'll target things like emotional eating, portion control, anxiety eating, and even the literal guilt and stress that makes you feel stuck and is such a roadblock for so many people. It's science-backed, clinically supported, and honestly, it's way more affordable than seeing an actual hypnotherapist in person. So here's what makes it so cool. It helps rewire your automatic food responses, lowers your stress and cortisol levels so that your body isn't fighting the progress. It teaches mindful eating and real hunger cues. And it supports long-term weight loss. 94% of its users kept the weight off better than control groups. And especially if you're someone who's busy, always traveling, or just doesn't want to have to micromanage your calories, this is so perfect for you. And plans start as low as $11 a month, which is insane since it's literally reshaping your brain's relationship with food. So if you're ready to stop fighting yourself and finally feel in control, head to hypnosio.com or download the app from the Google Play or App Store. Try it today. Thank you so much to Hypnosio for sponsoring this video. And now on to the rest of the video. I am not convinced that Israel did. However, there are some red flags when it comes to how desperately so many people want to shut down that conversation. Because again, like I said, the truth does not fear investigation. So why would you care at all about people coming to that conclusion unless you had a suspicion that it was potentially correct? Now, I'm going to lay out some information shared by Candace Owens and other people behind the scenes who are saying that it is important to actually listen to Charlie Kirk, for which he did say apparently that he was afraid Israel was going to kill him. And I would hope to God, I would pray that if I were assassinated tomorrow and I had previous to being killed told people I think Joe Blow down the street is the person who's going to do it, I would pray to God that afterward everybody didn't just completely disregard that I had, said something about who was going to do it beforehand. Everyone would want to be listened to if they had said something like that. So we're going to get to that. So Charlie Kirk's leaked text confirms he was livid about bullying Jewish donors. I'm leaving the pro-Israel cause. These are text messages released by Candace Owens. And again, none of this is any sort of like home run, like, yes, Israel did it. We're looking at the circumstantial evidence right now, which is, by the way, how court cases are. That's how evidence is actually legitimately built up in cases. When someone dies, when someone is murdered, what they were saying about their imminent death before it happened is always going to be taken into account. So whatever. So these are texts Candace released from Charlie in a group chat. Just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace to, assuming a Turning Point USA event. Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. So that's one thing. Then you have Harrison Smith, who's a host on InfoWars, who I do enjoy his work when I come across it, stated a month or so before the assassination. This is prior. I'm not going to name names, but I was told by someone close to Charlie Kirk that Charlie thinks Israel will kill him if he turns against them. That is some crazy stuff to have been posted publicly a month before. You also have Candace saying this.
And then we're supposed to believe that he had that dramatic switch. So he went from, I'm done, to like, hey, love ya. How can I be of more service to you? And then in that exact same day, he was texting people saying they are going to kill me. On the same day that he's on this Zoom call, this is a fact, this night Zoom call, as Josh says it was at night, or the New York Post reported, I think, right, that it was at night, that at the same time, that same day, he's texting people saying they are going to kill me.
Again, is this some type of home run? No. Is this something that should or would be ignored in any other murder case? No. Again, you would pray that if you were saying this to your friends, they would say something if something really did end up happening. I know that people have such an aversion to holding Israel accountable for anything, ever. And then those people think that they are somehow more sane than the people who blame Israel for every problem ever. They are equally as insane. You stub your toe in the morning. Goddamn, Israel. Why would you do that to me? Right? Come down with some kind of disease, Israel. And then you have people who are like, Israel has never done anything wrong in the history of ever. Very young country, by the way. So it's not saying much, I guess. But Israel's never done anything wrong, and any claim against them means that you hate Jewish people. Quite a leap. Quite a leap. What are you, a kangaroo? What are you doing? Going from criticizing a country, which we all do in our own country, and we all, half the time I'm talking shit about Canada, whether they deserve the smoke or not, because it's funny. You know what I mean? You talk about Mexico, UK, our own country, America. Half the people in America chant death to America, I hate America, but you can't say anything bad about Israel. That's very strange to me. And to equate that to anti-Semitism, For me to sit here and pretend that makes sense, please don't hold your breath. You could die, be born again, die, come back before I pretend like that makes any sense. For me, like I said, I would have a lot more faith. It would be so much easier to, these words almost make you want to, I'm going to pass out, trust the government. I'd be able to maybe do that, a little easier if they had not, like I said, arrested multiple people falsely before and also didn't lie about every other fucking thing. Like, it's so crazy how there is this new, uprising in, trust the government ass conservatives and people on the right, when just a few years ago, it was just so the opposite, and I'm really not liking it. And again, a lot of these people that really do believe, I'm not saying anybody's dumb for believing the Tyler Robinson, theory, because he might be the actual person. However, there are some things that don't make sense to me. Again, this is what's called circumstantial evidence. There's a difference between a home run and circumstantial evidence. However, it's not to disregard circumstantial evidence. So again, first of all, the fact that they arrested multiple people wrongly to begin with. Second of all, the fact that the first guy claimed allegedly he was paid to say that he did it, that would make him a patsy. So who's paying him? Because I don't think Tyler Robinson, a young, broke, goofy, allegedly dating a furry, would really have the money to be paying off people that kind of money for that kind of operation. So you have the fact that apparently Tyler Robinson denies it right now, even in the moment, which is really against, I can't imagine what kind of lawyer would be advising him that. I know they'd be advising him the opposite. So I think it's telling he still says no. A lot of people commend the father for turning him in, because Tyler Robinson's father did turn him in. But also he was paid $100,000, which seems a bit odd to me. Like, I don't know how standard that is. Maybe I don't know enough about that. But the minute people start getting paid, it's kind of like, I don't know. You have the fact that there was no autopsy done. Now, this is a big one for me. This is a big one for me because I can't think of any logical reason why that wouldn't be done. Especially considering the people around Charlie have clearly pulled out all the bells and whistles in regards to his death. Everything has been done. They had the most lit memorial ever. They had a president there. They pulled out that venue. They pulled out the operation of putting out content right away, like getting the company in order. Everything's been in order perfectly. And it's been very impressive. But you wouldn't cross your T's and dot your I's enough to have an autopsy done, at least to shut down any conspiracy talk. Because conspiracy talk, a lot of people are like, oh, it's disrespectful to him to question, and make conspiracies or whatever. I can see where you're coming from if you're right, but if you're wrong, it would be incredibly disrespectful to not raise the questions, right? So that's not really the argument you think it is. If I die, if any commentator, any public figure in politics dies, I think questioning it is 100% on the table, and a lot of it could be shut down. Where's Erica Kirk right now? Because, again, it's no disrespect, but she's had no problem being public AF since the murder. And you know what? God bless her, because you can never judge how people mourn. I remember when my father passed away. It wasn't a murder, but I was 19, very traumatic, very sudden. I didn't cry for like a year. I remember getting very angry, irrationally, like, why'd you have to die? Because mourning and grief, it's very complicated. It's a very specific state of mind, and it's a different state of mind for everybody. So I don't judge any way she's mourning. However, I do notice that she has been very public. She hosted the show. She did the memorial phenomenally. I just would think that if there was no merit to any of the Israel stuff, she would have no problem hopping on X and dispelling it, correcting people like Candace, who, again, people act like she's so crazy. She is. But crazy does not equal incorrect. Crazy does not equal wrong. And crazy does not equal lying. Like, I hate when people just disregard somebody as crazy, as if that somehow proves their point wrong. I'm sorry. That doesn't make any sense. Crazy does not equal wrong. Take it from a fucking tranny. The sky's blue. I just told you a truth, and I'm a tranny. So crazy does not equal wrong. Candace was also a close friend of his, a personal friend, someone who knew him in real life. I think we should listen to what Charlie was saying before he died, and I think we should listen to what his friends are saying now. Especially because she's not the only one. People are making it out to be that she's the only one. It's really not the case. You know, I was on board initially with the idea that this was that this was Tyler Robinson, this was the guy, radicalized, furry, trans, whatever partner. And then I kind of started saying it out loud when I was trying to when I would just have a discussion about it, and I'd be like, this kind of sounds retarded. Like, I don't know, this kind of sounds like an FBI narrative. And when I look at how it went down, and when I look at videos from, people doing videos about the ballistics, and when I talk to people in my real life who are maybe military or ex-military, and they say it was totally an operation, and they're like laughing about it like it's so stupid, people believe it was just some random kid, I do take that seriously. And then if the government wanted me to trust their narrative, they would tell me the truth about any thing else. Like I said, there's no Epstein files and Tyler Robinson did it. They could be correct about Tyler Robinson, but I'm not necessarily case closed on it yet. I'm really not. It's also very suspect that some of Charlie's commentary about Israel has been wiped from YouTube after his death, which is very strange to me, especially lately with how YouTube is. They are very, they're more free and open than ever. People say a lot about YouTube censorship, and they definitely were like that in the past. But lately they've been very against that, and I've appreciated that. So for them to take this video down is just kind of weird, and I don't get it.
But the fact is now Bibi and the Israeli hard right government has a mandate. I got to be careful the way I say this. They're going to try to ethnically cleanse Gaza. Yep. I mean, I don't use that term lightly, okay? They're talking about basically removing 2.5 million people from there, okay? And honestly, they have a mandate to go seek justice and revenge. They do. This idea that they need to have a truce or a peace treaty, that's morally crap after you see women and children be burned alive and dragged to the street.
So what's notable is him saying, in the middle of the sentence, and as someone who has consumed a lot of Charlie Kirk content, he was great at making just like short videos that you could watch while you're like eating dinner or something on the couch. Like, I guess that kind of reveals I eat like a cave person, but he was never using the words, I have to be careful how I say this. That's like the first time I've ever heard him speak with some fear in his heart. And to me, that's noticeable. Why would this be taken down? This is standard commentary for a lot of people. A lot of people have this opinion. Why would it be taken down specifically of Charlie and right after the assassination? Again, this is circumstantial evidence, which again matters. And to play devil's advocate, I hate to say, we got to change that phrase. That should not be a popular phrase. I'm not advocating for shit of the devil. To play, contrarian's advocate, to help the contrarians out, let's say that. I will say that people do say things. His life and his story got real serious, obviously, in an instant when the unthinkable happened and he was murdered. And so now any discussion of Charlie Kirk is always going to be highly serious. And so there might be some tone in like a text message people maybe see too deeply, look too much into. So like, because of Israel's reputation, it's kind of almost like common language for people to sometimes jokingly be like, if Israel takes me out or if Israel kills me. So there is, I can maybe lend some credence to that and be like, he could have been partly, talking, exaggerating, like, oh, Israel's going to take me out. But then it becomes very serious when he does get taken out. And I know that if I had texted somebody and told friends that Joe Schmo was going to take me out before I did, and then he did, Joe Schmo would probably be pulled into questioning. And it would be scary if he didn't. So I just think we should listen to Charlie. And I'm willing to look at circumstantial evidence of Israel being involved, because to pretend as if it's a country that is morally above murder, that would be delusional. And it's not to say, obviously, that no country is above that. This is how shit really works. Governments take people out. It's more delusional to believe that it's somehow crazy to think that a government would take somebody out than otherwise. And I'm so sorry if you live in some kind of fantasy where intelligence agencies are not doing everything. See, that's the thing. Okay. My whole thing is, where are we? What are we living in? What is this? I'm not going to go flat earth on you because who knows who even cares? We still got to pay bills, bitch. Shape of the earth, don't change it. However, do we really live in a culture, in a society that is so sick, depraved, spiritually weak, mentally ill, and just broken that we really do kill each other over politics, that we really do, mass shootings, that we really do these horrific things at the frequency that it appears that we do? Or is some, and God forbid most, but at least some of it orchestrated by intelligence agencies? And that's just a real ass question, because if they're doing it to presidents, imagine it's nothing to once a month orchestrate some kind of, shooting of a school or whatever. And they can stack multiple, goals and directives within one incident, right? You get people suddenly questioning the Second Amendment. This is what I said with the trans shooter. This was a few weeks before the Charlie thing. Time moves so fast. It feels like a year ago already. And it was just yesterday, basically. But, I did a whole video talking about how that shooter had so many connections to intelligence agencies and how, in my opinion, it felt like an MK Ultra situation. Now, if that's the case, you have to question how many others are like that and what would be the goal of that. I can see multiple goals stacked in the trans shooter one. No other incident in recent history has gotten a certain segment of the right to question putting a hole in the Second Amendment. There was that whole discussion immediately about okay, well, should we take guns away from trans people? And I was so glad to see that I would say at least 75% of Republicans online were like, actually, no, we're not going to touch the Second Amendment for anything. The NRA came out and said, what the hell are you doing? No. And so that was good. However, and it was Pam Bondi's stupid ass that allegedly brought that up and was talking about that. Pam Bondi is one of the most retarded hoes I've ever seen in government. And that's saying something, right? So again, to trust that her over there at the FBI has all this about Charlie correct and being done the right way is kind of like, excuse me if I'm not blindly trusting the bitch who did the Epstein folder stunt. I'm just really not. Excuse me if I'm not trusting cracked out Kash Patel looking like this, scared out of his mind, probably MK Ultra out of his mind. God forbid I question that, right? That's becoming a sin now, even within some segments of the right. Unless, if it implicates Israel at all, you cannot question it. I saw the segment of the right. Most people on the right were very upset about the Epstein stuff. There was a segment of the right that was like, do not talk about the Epstein stuff. And you know why? Because it implicated Israel. Because each and every one of them, and this is so unfortunate, but were in fact Jewish. Most of them, or Zionists. I'll say Zionists. Because again, the idea that this is somehow about Judaism as a religion is just retarded. And if you try to make it about that, you're doing yourself a very big disservice. The same way that when I see trans people who get so offended, those posts on X where people will be talking shit about pedophilia, and then random LGBT activists will pipe in and be like, oh my God, they're targeting gay people. Hold on. We were talking about pedophiles, you're making it about gay people. What is that? Is that some kind of Freudian slip? Is that your subconscious? What is that? Same as if I'm talking about Epstein or criticizing something that a foreign nation is doing, y'all suddenly make it about, oh, you hate Jews. Skirt. Park it. Park it, bitch. Because I would advise you don't do that for your own sake. Why would you equate that? My God. It's kind of like, here's a good example. I'm a Christian. And there are some really messed up Christian countries in the world. There are some African Christian countries where they put gay people in the newspaper to go hunt them and stone them, right? There are African countries that abuse and misuse Christianity and put it into law in a way that very much resembles how Islam is often put into law and becomes disruptive and oppressive. I'm not going to be, because I'm Christian, like, do not talk about Kenya. Do not talk about Kenya. That's a Christian country. That's the same thing you're doing if I'm trying to talk about the actions of a country and y'all like, do not talk about Jews. Holy shit. It's really not about that, sis. It's really not. Hello. Shalom. I can't. Actually, I can. Because I'm a fucking American and I can question anything. If I can question my own government's involvement, this is another good example. Until 5 seconds ago, everyone was all about questioning the American government's involvement in 9/11. Perfect example. And then once people started questioning and seeing some circumstantial evidence that Israel had something to also do with it, suddenly it became anti-Semitic and suddenly 9/11 conspiracies were off the table. So you cannot be pro-conspiracy unless it implicates a country that you want to defend. That's certainly not how it works. And one thing you understand about humanity and about people is that people are fallen. This is one of the benefits of being Christians. You learn this. We live in a fallen world. We simply do. Jesse Lee Peterson was right. I saw he put a video up of me, like an interview I did with him, like at this point, 2017, almost 10 years ago. And I was like, damn, I look fat, because it was right after I got surgery. But anyways, he was right, fallen world. And so you learn that that means that so long as humans are occupying a government, it's going to be a problem. And that's why I'm limited government. But there's no exemption for Israel. Israel is not this benevolent, only do good country, never in the wrong country. And I feel like there's a lot of people who act like that. And when I see that as just as irrational as the people who were like, Israel is why I stubbed my toe this morning, right? Like, they're neither the source of every problem nor the source of no problems. And I suggest that everybody find some sort of balance with that, because no matter what, we do all have to occupy this world together. And I would prefer to not be an enemy of Israel. I really would. But, you know how they say with friends like these, who needs enemies? I don't want to veer into that territory with Israel, but I'm feeling like that's kind of how it is when it comes to, you know, we're going to talk about this later in the podcast too, but Israel openly buying TikTok and talking about on video propagandizing American citizens. That seemed to me to be the thing that we were so worried about China doing 5 seconds ago. We cannot have a foreign country propagandizing us. And then suddenly it's like, where are all those people when it comes to Israel openly talking to about admitting to doing it? This is what I mean by just some intellectual consistency, which turns the temperature down, by the way. Everyone's on this turn the temperature down shit. Part of that is finding some balance, finding some intellectual fucking honesty. Israel absolutely is criticizable, considering that we pay them so much fucking money, considering there are Americans dying on the street of drug addictions and poverty in major American cities, but all these billions of dollars are going to Israel to fight a war that maybe I have an issue with. And maybe even if I didn't have an issue with it in the beginning, maybe it's going on too long and now I do. Maybe considering my taxes are funding it, I have a right to be like, change my mind. Needs to end. Needs to end. What part of that is about hating Jews? Because I do see real anti-Semitism online. I absolutely do. And I resent it because I feel like harboring hatred in your heart for any group of people is not only low IQ, but it is spiritually dead. As a Christian, I'm called to see all people as equal. And sometimes it's harder than others when you come to, thinking about certain groups, like maybe people who harm children, maybe people who commit murder, maybe people who have wronged you in life. But you do always come back to that humble position of like, we're all people. And this is what we're living in, this setup here. And we need to get back to that. Unfortunately, not everyone feels that way, which is why you can, on the other tip, mock someone for being, murdered. And that's what's so frustrating is like, okay, let's say on a low end, I consider this a low end. Let's say 25% of mass shootings and political assassinations in this country are the result of intelligence and military operations. Let's just give me that fantasy for a second that we live in a world where 25%, I feel like it's higher. I really do. But let's go low end 25. That matters because that means, are humans really this violent, really this sick, really this evil, really this turned against each other? Or are we being manipulated to perceive ourselves that way, and so we act in kind? Because unfortunately, even if the entire thing was an intelligence military operation, even if the entire thing is like fake and Tyler Robinson is not the person, you can't take away that there were millions of liberals, mainstream and radical leftists, spitting on his grave, saying he deserved it, encouraging more violence. You can't take that away. And so I know we do live in a very spiritually dead society. However, I would rather not inflate it and think it's even more than it really is by like our government staging certain things. If a quarter of it is some psyop shit, I'll take that quarter that we are 25% more good than I thought. Because I really am sick of the hate. I really am. We need to bring back that no hate campaign. Remember that retarded thing? No hate. They wrote on their cheeks. We need to bring it back, but for real. Thanks again to Hypnosio for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Go check them out. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel as well as my podcast channel. Follow me on X, TikTok, Instagram, all the things. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye, guys.